Well, what is up, everyone? Welcome to episode number 75 of the Faith and Pop Culture Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Blackaby, and I am joined once again, as I always am, by the one, the only, Naya Carlson. How you doing today, Naya?
I'm great. I'm chilling out in this cold weather.
Yeah, so where we're filming, we actually had some light snow.
Yeah.
We're in the Atlanta area, so not what you expect. It is a
Well,
little
the day
colder.
before was 75 degrees.
Yeah, it's sort of that, like, it's summer, just kidding, it's not, we kinda get
Yeah.
back into winter, but, hey, I like the cold. I'm a cold, weather kind of person. But there's been a lot going on this week. This is, kind of the big thing, for us to get into, from several different angles, the controversies, the good stuff, the celebrating the arts, the talking about it, because we had the Oscars, which happened just last Sunday. Kind of the big, I know there's a bunch of, it seems like for a stretch in the year, there's like every week, it's like, it's the Critics' Choice Awards, it's the Golden Globes, it's the
hmm
Teen Choice, it's like, how many different ways, the BAFTA, how many different ways can we celebrate the same movies? But I think like the Oscars still are they're the biggie. Like they're the one that gets the most attention and like is definitely the most prestigious of the various award shows. And I think it's important. I think it's one of those things that, and we'll get into it maybe a little bit, that I think in some ways like Christians have been just sort of disillusioned with maybe Hollywood in general, and maybe even more specifically with the Oscars, and it's just a bunch of pretentious, political, motivated nonsense movies no one even cares about or watches. And um, but I do think, I mean, we'll get into. I don't necessarily agree with that mindset, but I do think because they are still such an important kind of day on the calendar as far as like pop culture and cinema and movies and the arts, that it is, even if you're not necessarily like just a hardcore cinephile that is following who's going to win and who's the nominees. And I think there is a lot of interesting stuff for Christians to latch onto, to think through, to just see how it represents culture. So we'll get into kind of breaking down a bit of the winners and what it could mean with some of the movies that were celebrated. But before we get there, it's always good to start off your day, your morning, with a little controversy. Kind of stir the pot a little bit, get the adrenaline going. And it is related to the Oscars, but kind of one of the stories that's been circling around that we haven't had a chance to get into, and it kind of became relevant again because of the Oscars, is Mr. You have to help me with his name, Timothée Chalamet. Did I say that?
Chalamet.
Chalamet.
He's not Charlemagne.
Chalamet. It is sounds like toilet paper, but Chalamet. So he kind of one of the, I don't know, like one of the bankable leading men that there is right now. Like he just seems like
hmm
he's in everything, real successful. As we're recording this, they just released posters for the new Dune movies, obviously known for that. And he was a kind of a big player in this Oscar um, award season for the film, Marty Supreme. Um, one of the not front runners for actor of the year, and the film was nominated. But things kind of fell apart for him. Right, right. He saw the finish line. He was imagining the glory, and then he tripped
And
on a
he
rock.
stopped running.
And things fell apart a little bit. So why don't you kind of set this up? Because kind of his
Yes.
comments, and because I think there is, I don't know, I think there's some stuff to get into for this. But why
hmm
don't you set up a little bit of sort of what he tripped on and kind of some of the backlash from that?
Yeah, so there was I think it was a Variety and CNN town hall kind of thing, and it was Timothy and Matthew McConaughey kind of reuniting because they had started Interstellar together like a
Which
long
I
time
totally
ago.
forgot about until
Yeah,
then. It's like,
which is yeah,
because he's
every
like
time.
a
I
kid.
forget every time. And then I see him and I'm like, is that Chalamet? Is that Timmy Tim? Um, but they were chatting and little Timmy was talking about like the struggle to keep movie theaters alive, and he said, and this is a quote, "I don't want to be working in ballet or opera or things where it's like, hey, keep this thing alive. Even though it's like no one cares about this anymore. All respect to the ballet and opera people out there." And then he kind of laughs, or everyone kind of laughs, and he goes, "I just lost 14 cents in viewership." And so the ballet and opera community are very upset about this, but not only them, like people who can't name an opera singer or a ballet dancer are upset about this. What was funny, is that the Seattle Opera really capitalized on it, and they offered 14% off of tickets to the opera Carmen if people used the code Timothy, and I just think that's really really
And
funny.
I mean, and he was roasted like even at the Oscars. Like they,
Yeah.
like the for Sinners, they brought up like Misty, probably the most famous ballet dancer, and like Conan O'Brien, who was like the MC, the host. He roasted him several times for this, and I mean, people have argued that like that cost him because he won nothing at the Oscars. His film, I think, won nothing.
Mhm.
I'm
Out of,
not
I
so
think,
sure.
9 nominations,
Yeah, like it
something like
had.
that.
I don't. I think if you look at like the dates, the comments happened actually a couple weeks ago, but they only went viral like later. I don't know. I didn't do enough digging to figure
Yeah.
out like why it took like 2 weeks for all of a sudden it to become a news story everywhere. But like, so the comments happened before the voting closed. The actual like viral, oh, everyone else knows about this, I think happened like the day that the voting closed. So I don't think it actually. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't think it cost him anything. I think it's just sort of an easy punching uh, punching bag. But I think it's an issue. I think some of the pushback and even his comments, I don't know. I think he's actually touching on something that is like a valid point, and there's some stuff there. Even if I think you can even see like in real time with the interview, and maybe we can link the video below. Like he realizes like I shouldn't have said that. Like
Yeah.
that was not the best.
He was like, "Oh."
And I will
But
say,
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead. I was gonna say, well, McConaughey agreed with him too. It just, like, it was probably not the best way to word it. Like, don't give an example of another art form that could be considered dying. Just be like, "I don't wanna be fighting to keep theaters alive if people don't really care about them," you know?
yeah, like I think, and I'm, and I think even this as Christians and as someone that has like obviously not at all at the scale that he has done it, but someone that's I've promoted books and been on interviews and like where you're speaking off the cuff and you're saying things, and you're talking a lot
Mhm.
about something, and like I don't know, I always have a little bit of a grace for what someone says off the cuff in one moment is not like the essence of their character, and it's
Mhm.
and it's funny because you see like how quickly people can turn on someone. Like I think this is going to blow over and no one's going to remember it
Yeah.
in a month or so. But you just sort of see this popular A-list guy, and it's one comment in an interview that's like 2 hour long interview, and I think even the intentions seem very legitimate. Like he's not trying to be a jerk, just
Mhm.
doesn't say things as well as he could have. And it's all like, he's a bad person. We want him to lose. We're glad he deserves to lose. Like, get him out of Hollywood. He
I
hates
know.
ballet and he hates opera. But I think to sort of to get beneath some of just the knee jerk pile on him, or and acknowledging that he could have said that better. I do think, and maybe this is a hot take, and this will be interesting to see what you think too. But I don't think he's wrong. I think
Mhm.
he was not well spoken, and I'll say too, like maybe it's my own disclaimer to avoid the Timothy treatment, but like my first date with my now wife was to an opera. Like so, like I have fond. I know people personally that are professional opera singers.
Mhm.
I know people that do ballet. I think we're working to in the next couple of weeks have someone on this podcast that leads like a ballet troupe, like and professionally. Like it's like I'm not I think those art forms are great, and I don't think Timothy was trying to say that they're not great. The point
Mm-mm.
was not like to disparage that these are not legitimate art. His point, like in context with the with his like the quote, which he was trying to say, like yeah, like sort of the how he balances as an actor doing like the pop entertaining the big blockbusters and the more like serious drama art things,
Mhm.
and he was almost defending the approach that it's why he does these popular films and not just the dramas is that
Yeah.
people go to those. And he was trying to the point he was trying to make is yeah, like film, if it's all just serious art and it's very pretentious and it's not for the masses, it's just for the real serious, like he said, then we'll become sort of this high art form like
Mhm.
ballet, like opera, that no one, obviously no one is not the best word he could have used, but like
Mhm.
there's no argument that those are less popular art forms. Like, like
They definitely
people
yeah.
don't, like you can name, off the top of your head dozens of movies and actors. Like I think everyone, even those that are plugged in culturally, besides like Misty Copeland, like, can't name a lot of ballet dancers, can't name a lot of operas, can't name a lot of opera singing. Like they are sort of this high art, um, less mainstream art form. And I think in that way, he's right. Like the point he was making, which I think is why even Matthew McConaughey doesn't necessarily like fully agree with him, but I
He's
think
just like, "I know what you're saying,"
yeah,
you
you can see
know?
he's saying it. Yeah, I get it. Like yeah, it's important to make films that actually are popular, and that's
Mhm.
not a bad thing. Otherwise, you end up as a more niche thing, and theaters sort of
Yeah.
die off, and it's just for the elite cultural people. Um, are you as forgiving for him as I am? Like, are you? Where do you sort of land on? Should we
I mean,
vindicate Timothy?
I don't really understand why people are so so mad about it, I'm gonna be honest. Like, the only reason that I know, the names of more than one ballet dancer or, more than one opera is because, well, 1, I studied film in college and, like, part of it we had
Oh
to
yeah, yeah.
one of the classes was music appreciation, and opera was part of that, and 2, my mom used to be a ballet dancer, and so she kinda taught us different different ballet dancers were. Um, wait, I forgot what I was saying. Oh,
I'm
why
curious.
am I forgiving? Why am I forgiving? I'm just like, people have said so many worse things, and it flies under the radar. The only reason people care about this is because he's been pushing marketing for Marty Supreme so hard, and so I think I wasn't personally like annoyed with him at this point because I'm just not. I don't really pay attention that much, but I think people are already like get him off of my screen in a
See, and
way.
I will say, in like, I'm in his corner for this. I actually find him kind of annoying. Like I'm not a huge. I think he's a fine actor. I think he. The funny thing is, like, he was a kid in Interstellar, and I feel like he looks the very same now as he did then, even though now he's like 30 something. I find him kind of obnoxious, but yeah, he's a good actor, and I do think he's not wrong. We should have had your mom come on. Is your mom plugged in enough to know? Like, would she be offended by his comments, or would she be like, yeah,
I think
not a lot of people do go to the
yeah,
opera
I
or the
mean, I
ballet?
think he wasn't saying that like ballet isn't um a skillful art form. He's just saying that it's not as popular anymore. So I think she would agree with
Yeah,
it.
because it is funny that a lot of people that are mad at, like, how dare you say that no one cares about opera or ballet, likely haven't even thought about going to the opera or the ballet
Mhm.
once in their entire life. So it's
Yeah.
it's like,
And I
of
make
course people care about it. Just
yeah,
I haven't, and no one I know has. Like,
and everyone that's mad about it has probably said a generalized term like that same day. Like, no one cares about, Timothée Chalamet, and then all of a sudden everyone cares. Like, just saying no one, it's a hyperbole. Like, can we
yeah,
go back and learn about
and here and
figurative
here's
language again?
here's one of the ironies for me for this whole thing is, and again, whether or not it actually did cost him his Oscar chances, I'm skeptical of, because I think a lot of the people that would have voted probably understood exactly what he was saying because they're in the industry
Mhm.
and they also have that same tension. But some of the like the pushback that he should lose his Oscars because he's, you know, that if you actually take what he's saying, like the need to balance like the excellent, like the more serious with making it popular, is like the Oscars itself has totally done that. Like the
Mhm.
Oscars over the last 10 years has or longer, like even like the big, the fact that we get like 10 or whatever, however 10 nominees for best film
Yeah,
is
something like that.
because The Dark Knight was not nominated, like, because a popular film didn't get nominated because there wasn't enough space.
Mhm.
They like expanded the field for movies that probably don't have a chance to win, but the fact that they're nominated, these more popular films, brings in audiences to watch the Oscars, and they need
Mhm.
ratings or else they're going to die. Like if it's just the elite people, then there is no Oscars. Like
Yeah.
that is just the irony is that so much of the Oscars itself is like, here's the best in art, but we're also a show that needs ratings and we need interest and we need
Mhm.
coverage. And so we need to nominate the Avengers or some kind of film that
Yeah.
probably really shouldn't win or even be in contention, which is exactly what Timothy's doing. Like
Mhm.
he's saying, yeah, like, there is that tension between sort of the high art and just the mass appeal, kind of
Yeah.
pop art. And I don't know, I agree with him. I think that is a valid. I don't agree again, I don't agree with how he said it, but I
Yeah.
agree that that is a valid, that there is sort of that stigma that, like, things that are popular aren't good and aren't
Mhm.
valuable because they're popular. That's not real films, you know, like.
Yeah. And, like, the ballet and the opera are just not as accessible either, you know, like, I think about back to when we talked about, Ted Sarandon's comments about, like, basically trying to get people only to watch streaming and how upset I was personally about that, and I'm like, "Oh, do I have a right to, like, compare, like, how I felt about that to how the ballet people feel about, this comment?" But it's like, movie theaters are way more accessible, like, there's evidence that people still care about movies and still wanna go and all of this stuff. There's not the same amount of evidence that people wanna go to the opera on a random Tuesday night, you know? It's just
Yeah, and I
yeah,
mean,
it's
like I said, like, I went to the opera, Rigoletto was the one I
mhm,
went to with my wife for our first date. We were given tickets, and, like, we enjoyed it. Like, it was really fun, and we had great tickets. But, like, it's in Italian.
mhm.
There's, like, the
That's
words
another
on the
thing.
screen, and it's like, I get it. Like, I get this is not the same as, watching, like, the new Spider-Man movie. Like,
Mhm,
of course, less people are gonna be in, because it's in a different language, it's a different sort of more niche musical form that you just don't hear a lot, and people don't understand how it works, and
mhm.
it even sounds almost, like, comical until you realize more. Like, the more you know of it, the more you can appreciate it, but a lot of people don't
Yeah.
know a lot of it, and
Yeah.
that, like, it makes sense that they're, and it's funny, even some of the pushback from, like, the ballet and the opera communities were sort of like, "Yeah, well, that's because 'cause we're high art and we're, it doesn't matter that less people, because 'cause we're more." And it's sort of like, well, that's
They're
sort of his
just
point. Like,
yeah.
his point, like, he wasn't saying that it was bad. He was saying because
Mhm,
it's high art, and your pushback is, well, it's because 'cause we're high, art. But kind of one of my takeaways for this, and maybe just sort of general, then we can move into the Oscars, themselves, is I do think there is still that tension between, like, high art and popular art, and maybe looking down on things that are popular because that's not real art. Like, I personally think Steven Spielberg is the greatest director of all time. I think he defined, like, multiple decades. He's done every
mhm,
genre. He's done serious. He's done not serious. Like, I think he's amazing. But I think, but he, like, often gets discredited because he's like a pop filmmaker. Like,
mhm,
how can he be good if he's not, more serious, more high art, and as though that's sort of like a lesser thing. And kind of I don't know. For me, it's like the fact this thing's popular on the one hand doesn't mean it's good. Like, the Transformers movies were popular. Those are not good art or in any way. But I think it also doesn't make it bad. Like, it's not an
mhm,
evil for art to appeal to mass people. Like, I think that's, we kind of talked about that even, I think, last episode. Like, that's kind of in some ways the point of art. Like, I
mhm.
know I've referenced, like, Tolstoy, the Russian novelist, wrote a lot about, like, art, and kind of his whole definition of art was like that it brings people together and it kind of unites them emotionally and stuff through the art. And that, and again, he wouldn't necessarily these days be considered, like, he is high art, like War and Peace, some of these things, like, that's not pop reading literature. But I think there was more of an understanding that, like, I don't know, like, art should appeal to people, and that's not bad. And that,
Mhm.
I think, sort of an elitist approach to art does lead to just less sphere of influence. But any
Yeah.
final vindication or thoughts on Timothy before we move into just the Oscars themselves?
I mean, I kind of agree with him, but again, just not the way that he said it. Um, yeah. Let's talk about whether or not the Oscars matter. Let's move into that.
I don't know. So the Oscars, and I don't want to get too deep into, like, I don't want to go in a, like, political angle with this, but it seems like every time the Oscars or one of these sort of award shows come up, there is always that immediate pushback that, like, no one cares anymore. Like, they're dumb. It's just a bunch of, like, I saw like the only Mr. Elon Musk, right after the Oscars, had done a tweet, saying, like, the Oscars have become unwatchable. And I question whether he actually watched the Oscars. And it was based on sort of some stereotypical, he was, like, quote, subtweeting, someone that was just sort of, the Oscars are all just a bunch of propaganda and, secular woke ideologies and all this virtue signaling, all this kind of stuff that gets swirled around the Oscars. And I've just sort of seen that mindset, particularly from the angle of like Christians or conservatives, like that these shows are just, I don't know, it's like Hollywood at its worst, and we don't even need
It's
these shows. And
feeding the
yeah, and
ego
like
in a
real,
way.
real Christians just don't care about the Oscars. And I don't know. The question for you is Mr. Musk correct? Like, do the Oscars matter? Is there still value in things like the Oscars?
I think it's simultaneously really cool and good to celebrate good art, but it's also kind of weird because it's like a lot of art is subjective, and sure, there's like in film you can be like, oh, this is technically really well done, and so that's easier to kind of judge. But it, I don't know. I don't think that even people who like are at the Oscars or are winning Oscars care about it as much as it might seem, you know?
Right. I feel like it. Have you ever seen it wasn't the Oscars, the famous Jim Carrey speech at I think it's the Golden Globe, where he talks about how he's like two-time Golden Globe winning Jim Carrey, and like when he goes to sleep, he like lays awake wondering if if he could ever be three-time gold, and like then he would have mean. And like you should look it up because it's a real classic. It always
Okay.
pops up on like things, but he was sort of pushing back a bit against the like that mindset. I mean, in
Mhm.
a way, I think he was saying it doesn't matter as much as like we put so much weight in these awards, and like when is enough, and to get that, do we need this sort of validation? And I think it was a good speech because he kind of pushed against sort of some of that thinking. But I think it
Yeah.
works because I do think there is like, I don't know, like I think in any field, awards and that kind of validation matters. And I think like I think people want, especially because it can be subjective, and it can, like, box office isn't a good way to tell, like, the fact that people went to the movie doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad. It just means it
Yeah.
appeals to people more, or wider audience, or it might just be because it's rated PG-13 and not R, or whatever it is, like, or it's a serious drama as opposed to a big blockbuster, like, that's not really a validation, that it's hard to, I don't know, I feel like as an actor or filmmaker, it's hard to sort of know where that validation and worth would come from. Especially because, like, the Oscars are voted by the Academy, which is like your peer groups are voting for this,
Yeah.
which, I've always felt is almost the best, I don't know, the most meaningful of like,
That is your
yeah, like
peers. I agree, yeah.
the public might know, and they might have, like the Teen Choice Awards or whatever, like, and
But
there's
people
value
with
in that.
experience
Um,
in the film industry, that's like these are people that you respect and you're working with too. Yeah.
and I think that they can just appreciate in some ways more. Like, I know
Yeah.
in things that, like things that I don't know, like writing or things that I'm more like experienced with, and I feel like I can then when I see, okay, I was telling my boys the other day, they played baseball. They had their first game last weekend. They lost, but they played okay. And I was telling them, like, now that they play baseball, to go to watch a professional, you just realize like how good they are, because
Yeah.
I've tried to throw the ball like that and catch the ball, and like now when I see them do it effortlessly, like, I can appreciate it more. And I sort of feel like that's like the Oscars, like some of, especially things like cinematography or editing, or some of those like more technical things,
Mhm.
they can appreciate that, like, yeah, that was really well done.
Yeah.
But kind of I don't know, for me, and maybe this has been a through line just for our podcast lately, is I feel like a lot of it's just what you focus on. Like, were there dumb token virtue signaling speeches and like little pins and slogans? Like, yeah, there always is. There's always the dumb, like, just, preach to the, it's going to be a friendly crowd and they're going to applaud you for, it's not like a courageous stand. You're saying what, everyone agrees with, and it makes you look good. Like you stand, like, there's always going to be that in any of these sort of things.
Yeah.
But like, was there also like heartfelt speeches and moments and like good art that was celebrated for being good? Like, yeah, like there was lots of good stuff too. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of Christians and maybe conservatives we we've just become sort of wired to focus on the bad. Like that
Mhm.
those are the things that get tweeted out. Like you don't see a lot of like retweets or, posts of just the real heartfelt speeches from someone that won an award and, you see the pins or the political moments and everyone piles on. Like I don't know. I think maybe acknowledge some of that. I don't think that kind of stuff makes any difference. Like this, the token little, but I do think there is something inspiring about sort of the good, the more heartfelt, the more like well earned moments. So what were some of the like for as you were watching through the Oscars, like
Mhm.
were there any moments or things that happened that like in a positive sense that just stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, going back to the Timothy, um, situation, he, I think, handled all of this slander really well. Because at least from what I've seen, and I haven't researched too much about it, he, instead of, like, freaking out and, like, posting an apology and all this stuff, he was in Japan just hanging out on all of the, like, game shows, and then, like, when Conan called him out and was like, they're just mad that you didn't add jazz to the list, like, all of this stuff. He genuinely just seemed entertained by it, and so I was like, "That's probably the best way that you can handle that." Um, but it was really cool, there was a tie. I don't know if you saw this, there was a tie between the best live action short, and Kumail Nanjiani was the announcer. It was he's hilarious, and he was just like, "I'm not kidding, guys." Like, he was, like, up there freaking out. And then there was some really cool, like, firsts, like the cinematographer for Sinners, Autumn Gerald Archipel, is the first woman of color to win an Oscar for cinematography. And then Jessie Buckley, who was the lead in Hamnet, which is just a gorgeous, gorgeous film, was the first Irish woman to win Best Actress. So there were a lot of firsts, which was really, really
And
cool.
speaking of her, 'cause that was one of the things that Jessie Buckley, which I was not able to see Hamnet. You saw it. I wanted to see it, although I don't know as a parent, me being a parent, I was like, I don't know emotionally if I can handle that. Like the the subject matter of that film,
Yeah.
I just couldn't find we couldn't get a screen or two. I couldn't find it wasn't. It was like more limited
Mhm.
release, so I haven't actually seen the movie. But her speech for that film like for me that's the sort of thing that should be that's the sort of thing we should be out not the the things we're mad at and the meaningless stuff and the political comments and lecturing and scolding to the regular people like because her speech like was very I don't know like I just found it such like a wholesome affirmation of parenthood and like
Mhm.
children and life and it's significant too because the movie obviously is centered around that dynamic like the parental child dynamic and like the Oscars in the speech she says like Mother's Day I guess is a different day in different countries. I never knew that. I thought it was just
Oh,
universal.
yeah.
But it was Mother's Day in the UK, and she's from the UK. The day like,
Well,
of
she's
the
from
Oscars on
she's from Ireland, not the UK.
isn't Ireland's part of the UK?
Northern Ireland is part of the UK.
Well,
I'm
apparently
pretty
not.
sure I don't think she's from Northern Ireland. I'll look it up.
No, well, she's from the UK area, if not the UK. I thought all that was just the UK, isn't
Mm-mm. No, Ireland's a
Scotland,
separate
Ireland, and
Ireland's
England?
completely
Oh,
separate,
well,
yeah.
the Irish. Well, she it was enough that she called out that it was Mother's Day in the UK. Um, was just I don't know in her speech, like she said a couple, like she kind of at the end of her speech, she says, "I would like to dedicate this to the beautiful chaos of a mother's heart," which is just such a great quote. Or and then at the end of this her speech, it says like to understand the capacity of a mother's love is the greatest collision of my life. And I don't know, I just found this speech to be such like a uplifting. Clearly, you could see how much it meant to her to win. Like she's very emotional. I don't know. You sort of see the difference between like yeah, the people that are just saying the expected sort of, political things for the applause and they're just saying it. They want the applause. Like, you see
Mhm.
the difference between that and then her speech where it's like this is very much from her heart. She's thanking her
Yeah.
husband, her kids. Like this is a very meaningful thing and like you can see even like how much the film itself was a personal like this wasn't just sort
Mhm.
of content that she made. Like this is very much a story that she embodied. So I don't know. For me, that was one
It's
of like
like
the standout things.
Yeah, I mean, it's like talking about Alyssa Liu last week too. Like the difference is how much she truly, truly cares about this story and relates to it, and just loves acting and being part of the process of filmmaking. It's a very clear difference to a lot of other performers.
And even the other one that I just thought was interesting was Michael B. Jordan won for Sinners, and Ryan Coogler won for a director, and
Yes.
just them winning together. Like I saw, because they've worked together for like 13 years and a bunch.
Yeah.
I don't know how many projects. I know they've been together. Like they're sort of one of those like duos, like
Mhm.
like was
Nolan
it
and
Leo and
Cillian
Scorsese,
Murphy.
like some of
Yeah.
those that just sort of work together, and I don't know, for them to work together for that long and then like both be celebrated at the
It's
same
really
time
special.
was just like a cool, I don't know, it's just like a cool human thing that I don't know, even if Christians maybe aren't as maybe are a little squeamish about the fact that like the movie that they're winning for is called Sinners. That maybe is a little murky. Like,
Mhm.
even if you set that aside, I think just that dynamic and like celebrating as from like an artistic creation standpoint, that's cool. That friendship, that bond, I don't know, that was one of my like standouts as
Did
far
you
as
see Sinners? Did you end up seeing it?
I did, which you can find our full review here on The Collision.
Yeah, wait, we didn't review that one.
We did Sinners.
No,
Maybe that
we
was
did?
before. Oh, we definitely reviewed it. That might have been before we brought you on. Those are the dark days. Uh,
Really?
that was
I'm looking it up.
the BN before Naya.
Whoa, that's way before me. Okay.
Yeah, because that came out near the start of the year. I think that was like one of the early
Yeah, I forgot
releases.
about that.
Which is maybe a good segue because I think one of the things that I always find as, I mean, even just as a Christian and just as someone that cares about culture and stuff, is regardless of whether you personally care about the Oscars and the awards, like I do think it does reflect a lot of like the movies that are elevated and celebrated, if nothing else, I think can, I don't know, it's they tell us something about the
Mhm.
types of stories, the type of art that at least for as far as things like the director and the eye, like maybe not cinematography and some of that, like that's a purely technical award.
Yeah.
It says that it's good and that this, that she's skilled or whoever's doing it is skilled. But I think when it comes to like the best movie or the best actor awards, that is, I think, where Christians can kind of put their finger on the pulse a bit of culture. And it was interesting to me. So because I reviewed Sinners, uh, did do that, and then one battle after another were kind of the two, at least it seemed to me like those are the two standouts for
Mhm.
and maybe K-pop Demon Hunters. Like those are the sort of the three that they won multiple awards. They were talked about a lot. They were kind of the front runners in various categories. And it's interesting to me because I feel like all three of those movies, there's stuff they raise questions for Christians, and I think there's some stuff in there, like particularly with like Sinners and One Battle After Another, because to me both those movies, I think you didn't see Sin. No, you saw both. Did you see
Mhm.
both the movies?
Yeah.
Um, for me, both those movies definitely fell in the category of like as I'm watching, I'm like, this is probably going to win an award. Like this is
Mhm.
well
Mhm.
made, like definitely award caliber art. And as a Christian, I'm thinking, and there's also some worldview stuff that I think is problematic, and if nothing else, needs to be dialogued with. Like there's some worldview, some ideology stuff that I kind of junky that I wasn't crazy about, and I think I don't know for me some of those movies are interesting. Like and I think it in some ways it pushes back against which I think a lot of Christians can treat art like that I and not even just Christians. I think conservatives or liberals or just whoever. This idea that a good art is whatever affirms my personal like religious or social or political ideology.
Mhm.
Like, like a lot of the art that gets praised by conservatives is well, it's art that affirms conservative values, or the best movies of the year by Christians are the ones that are very consistent with Christian values, and the best art for a lot of liberals is the stuff that pushes progressive ideology. And
Mhm.
I don't know, like I think that's just such a bad way to evaluate art. Like not that you don't evaluate the ideologies, but for me, those movies are sort of that example of you can actually engage with the art and affirm the excellence of
Yeah.
it, and still, like, in your other hand, wrestle with what it's trying to say and
Mhm.
disagree and critique it, and that's actually, like, healthy. That's not a bad thing, to do that. But what are your thoughts? Like, I think you liked both those movies. I think you maybe liked both them more than I did.
Probably.
I like Sinners more than I liked One Battle After Another,
Yeah.
um, and I
I
think I liked both them to
mhm.
a degree, but what were your thoughts sort of on those 2 front running films?
I mean, I thought they were both incredibly done. Even there's always things that you're not gonna agree with in it, but I was just like I was blown away by both of them. Like the just I could talk about it all day. You know that one scene when Cornbread's like, "Are you guys gonna let me in?" Oh, what a pinnacle scene. I don't know. It's been a while since you've seen Sinners, but man, I just and then the river of roads in One Battle After Another. There's just so many things in those movies that just amazing. But it reminds me of a I'm a huge proponent of this, of like just appreciating like the art. Even if you don't agree with it, like that's not to say that you can't. Like if there's something that clearly you shouldn't be watching, like just don't watch it. It's not that hard to do. Um, but it's like Dusty talks about how he doesn't like key lime pie. This is it it's gonna make sense, I promise, in a second. But when he was
I'm too
in
distracted by the fact that someone would not like key lime pie.
I
Uh,
know!
I find that off-putting, but anyway, continue.
But, like yes. When he was in the Keys, he had a slice of key lime pie, and he was like, "I could tell that it was just really, really good, but I just didn't like it personally." Like, you can still tell if something is good and acknowledge that without personally liking it. I say that all the time with movies. I'm like, "Oh, I didn't personally like this movie, but I do acknowledge that it's a really, really well done and good movie." And I think that we need to have that ambiguity a little bit more in conversations about culture and about film and art in general. I don't know, what do
When
you think?
I think I agree and I disagree. I think I agree in the sense that, well, I mean, I agree because I think you were agreeing with what I just said. So obviously, obviously, I agree.
Um,
But I think of like Paul, like whatever's true, whatever's good, whatever's excellent. I've always thought like those are not. He's not just using different words to say the same thing. Like
yeah,
those are different qualities, and I think sometimes something might be one of those and not the other. Like I think something can be excellent without necessarily being lovely,
good.
like, or without
Yeah,
being praiseworthy or admirable or whatever it is. Like, um, I think something like a film, like I think maybe that's why you maybe even like these films more. Like you approach it more from as a filmmaker and like just I think you maybe way more the technical, where
I
I
think so.
maybe because I'm coming at it more evaluating the worldview and some of that stuff that I still weigh the technical enough that I enjoyed the movie, but I'm also focused on like yeah, but like there is some like messaging, some very, especially in like, um, I mean, I think for both them, but more so with One Battle After Another, like very heavy handed messaging. Like it's
Yeah,
not a
that one
subtle,
was
let's
tough.
sort of be immersed. This is sort of my, this from my perspective. It is a very preachy film. I, it, I liked enough about the film that I was sort of okay with that. Maybe where it does differ from something like Key Lime Pie is I do think there is, I don't know, like for Christians, like because it is sort of a message, I don't think it's neutral. Like I don't think
That's
because it's
true,
like, oh,
yeah.
if you don't agree with it, then just don't. It's like, well, yes, I think to a point, but it's also like one of the most talked about, watched, popular movies, and it's pushing, I think, some ideologies, politically or just socially or racially or whatever it is, like that I don't know that Christians necessarily want to be would affirm. And I think that's where it gets a little messy of like, yes, like affirm the art, but also I think it's okay to be like, but what it's saying about like I think One Battle After Another is
Yeah,
very it's very I mean, just like the title, there's sort of this endless cycle. And even his speech, I think he framed it in a more positive way, like that it's and I do agree, because in his like, acceptance speech for winning Best Picture, it's like, he sort of dedicates it to like his kids. they're the generation that's going to come and fix the problems that left behind, which is very much the theme of the movie, that
Yeah.
we're sort of stuck in this endless cycle of conflict and everyone's angry and it's a big mess. But like the next generation is going to come up and going to be the ones to like fix the problems. I think the film itself doesn't do a good job necessarily unpacking. Like the answer for the film is just keep fighting. It's all
Yeah.
culture war battle. If like violence is justified because they're wrong, and it's I don't know. I don't think the way I don't agree with his message. I agree with his heart. I think that
Mhm.
I am optimistic about the younger generation. I have kids that in their generation, I think will fix a lot of stuff that we did wrong. Like I'm on board with that. I think the way the movie handled it is not necessarily um, necessarily like overly edifying. But I do think it's also interesting too, though. I think those three movies, the Sinners, K-pop Demon Hunters, and One Battle After Another, and maybe like Frankenstein. I know there are some other movies that were sort of
Love
standouts. That one,
Frankenstein.
which I know you're judging me that I never finished Frank. I started it. Um, my iPad died, and then I've been so
Why were
busy
you
that
watching it on an iPad?
is that a
I'm
confession?
gonna judge you for that.
Well,
That's what I'm judging you for.
I was doing it at a time when I couldn't be on a TV, so but hey, put it on Netflix, then you have to get it watched on an iPad. That's their fault. Uh,
That's
put it
right,
in theaters, then yes,
Ted.
I blame them. It's a them problem. But I think those three movies seem to be sort of the big like the three stars of the night, and it is interesting because like Sinners, and then K-pop Demon Hunters, both like spiritual themed story, like Sinners, vampires, supernatural. K-pop Demon Hunters, obviously there are demons, and that
Mhm.
whole kind of side of the story. And then like one as far as like religious application, like One Battle After Another, Sean Penn, right? The
Mhm.
one that
Who
best
didn't show up to
who
accept
didn't
his
show up.
award.
Another actor that I find quite pretentious and obnoxious, but that's just a me problem. But like, he won Best Supporting Actor, and if you've seen the film, like he portrays essentially the character that represents religion at its worst. Like he's
Mhm.
very hypocritical. He's a racist bigot that sort of quotes Bible stuff, and he sort of has the appearance of being kind of that, you know, suit and tie Christian religious figure, but is clearly like corrupt to the core and rotten and like irredeemable in any sense. Like, he's like a wholly 100% evil character, an irredeemable character. And I don't know. So I do think it's like I said. Like, I think they're whether you agree with like the presentation or how they do that, it is significant that like the three kind of biggest award films all I think have direct either spiritual or like religious connotations and like how they're wrestling with the church or religion or like just the reality of
Mhm.
spiritual stuff. Like I don't know, did any of that stand out to you, or you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think it's that theme is appearing more and more, which is really, really cool because it shows that people are actually thinking about their relationship with God and whether or not God exists and what that looks like for them, and that like if they're truly seeking the truth, they're gonna find it. So I think it's really cool that they're not scared to wrestle with that. They're probably not wrestling with it in the best way in a lot of the cases, but it's an important
Did you ever
conversation to
see
have.
um did you ever see K-pop Demon Hunters?
I didn't. I was literally. I'm gonna watch at least some of it on my lunch break. I was just thinking about that.
Because I actually like again, I'm not a K-pop. All I listen to is European heavy metal, so like power metal. So like K-pop is not high on my list of. It definitely was not in my wheelhouse, but like I think how it handled the spiritual stuff was like borderline faith-based film. Like, like there's obviously it wasn't trying to be, so it doesn't line up perfectly with like the gospel, but very much about kind of inner demons and the shame and the guilt and being set free and sacrifice. So much in there can draw the like our podcast last week. Like you can find the gospel very clearly. I think
Mhm.
Sinners was like kind of maybe on the fence for that. Like I think there is some edifying, even though it's like vampires and that's evil and demonic. Like they're also bad. Like
Yeah,
they
they're not
represent like
praised at
it's
all.
not like this isn't Twilight. Like it's not like and they're good. Like I think it handles that aspect in a way that I don't know, like, obviously, I don't think any of the filmmakers believe in vampires, but from, like, a symbolic sense, like, I think how it handles it, and I think I don't know, the One Battle After Another, I think I even said in my review of that, like I actually found his character, Sean Penn's, like one of the worst parts of the movie, and I think maybe I need to
Yeah.
look at my review. Like I think I maybe alluded to like I can see how he'll probably be acknowledged, how people could. I think I just found it so heavy-handed that like the messaging of it,
It
I
was
think
pretty
clouded
crazy.
his performance for me. Like whereas if I wasn't as bothered by just sort of how over the top it was, then I don't know. I just feel like I wasn't in like a rhythm for. But I do think his character is significant, whether you think it was overly preachy or not, in representing how I think a large segment of our society views religion, like views as sort of the
Yeah.
enemy for progress, the hypocritical, the ones that are not down in the fight. They're sort of the bigoted and they're all about themselves and they're just using scripture and religious imagery, but they don't actually like follow through on any of it. Like, I don't know. I think his character is a mixed bag for me, but it is interesting and I think is telling. Like, that is a picture of how a lot of people view religion today, whether
Mhm.
you agree with them or not. And I don't know. I somewhat agree with that portrayal. But any kind of final thoughts for just anything that stood out to you for the Oscars, either as a Christian or just as an artist and filmmaker? Like any other kind of highlights or things that?
I don't know. I mean, I think this one was pretty smooth. It's normally not this smooth. Except the K-pop Demon Hunters when they won. Did you see that when they won for
Yeah.
Best Original Song? I was like, oh, so embarrassing.
um, and it's so sad too because if you see that, because if you guys didn't watch, like they're giving their speech. They won for Golden, going up, up, up. Good song, but they're giving their like speech, and then they like
The music
exceed their limit,
plays.
and it's like like the meme of like, almost like they kind of take the mic away, and then the music plays, and the lights dim, and they sort of like everything except for like a big cane that pulls them off stage, like
Yeah.
very much. And it's so sad because it zooms in on them, and they're like just like 5 more minutes, like they just want to get out their final. And I don't know. I know people are mad about that. I feel like it's too bad, especially for a moment like that. But I also get it. Like I think there's a limit for speeches, and nothing galls me more than
How long
as
was
someone
their
that
speech? Was it
I
long?
don't know. I don't think it was. I mean, they had a lot of them up there,
Yeah.
um, but as someone that has like had to do at least a little bit of like kind of public speaking, and like I've been burned by people that like you have 15 minutes. Okay, I'll take 35. And it's like, well, everyone else has to adjust now. Now my speech has to be shorter.
Yeah.
So I get it. I don't think there's anything malicious or like racist or like I think it was purely they would have done that to anyone that went over their speech limit. But it is too bad because I feel like they what they had to say in their speech it was good. Like it should have been validated. So I don't know. They need to maybe I don't know if there's a solution to that other than just staying in your time limit.
Yeah.
But maybe they can like give them a chance to like I don't know, like off stage or something, finish the speech and get out, say your part,
Yeah.
because that was too bad. But I do think
Yeah.
overall, and maybe to conclude, like it did seem like there's always going to be the noise and the people that knee jerk, it's the worst. It's just Hollywood's the worst, and I'm not going to watch it, but I'm sure if I did, I would hate it. Like there's always going to be that. I don't think that's going away, but it did feel like, other than maybe poor Timothy, there just wasn't a whole lot of bad. Like there wasn't a
Yeah.
lot of. It seemed like it was just sort of I don't know, like pretty even, sort of what the Oscars should be. I think films were celebrated, good artists were celebrated. Most of the speeches seemed sort of fine. Everything went smoothly. So I don't. I think it. I don't know what the ratings were. Like I know the ratings have been like tanking for years,
Yeah, I don't know.
but I think it is. I don't know. For me, it shows that you can have these award ceremonies, and they can mean something for our culture. And I think especially for this year, they can mean something for Christians as well. But something that I know means a lot to culture and to Christians and even to non-Christians and people of any religion, I think can benefit and be edified by the
Mhm.
final
Mhm.
segment of this podcast, which is things we like that you should like too.
I have
So
no idea what you're gonna say. Sorry.
I mean, I know you're always at the edge of your seat, just waiting
Yes, I
for.
am. Well,
Uh,
normally I know what it's gonna be. I don't know this week.
so I have two things that
You can
I
only
can
have
share.
one.
Well, they're related. So
Okay.
one builds upon the other. So the Oscars were not the only kind of big thing that happened recently. Uh, Perhaps even bigger, more monumental was that I had a birthday. I celebrated a birthday. So one of the things I
Happy
like,
late birthday.
yeah, I know. I think your present. I don't know if it got
It
lost or if you
should be
left
in
it.
the mail.
Okay,
Do
I was
you
waiting
need to
for it and
check
I
your
didn't see.
mailbox?
I was gonna do an unboxing video of it
Oh,
here,
next
but
week.
next week. Well, I still
Yeah.
accept that. So one of the things I like is just birthdays. I won't tell you how old I am, but let's just say I can see 40 on the horizon, so I'm getting up there. But birthdays are still awesome. It's fun to be spoiled. But the other thing, the more to build off of that, the thing I like that people should like too. I don't know. Have you ever seen the ads? It seem like they're everywhere on like social media for the candlelight concerts. Have have those got into
That
your
sounds
algorithm?
so familiar. What is
Um,
it?
I've been like bombarded by those for years, where you see these videos and it's like in some sort of small intimate building. There's just like 1,000 candles all over the stage, and then there's like violins and cellos and like a quartet, and they do various covers. They'll play the music of Hans Zimmer, or else they'll do like renditions of Taylor Swift hits, but with like the violin and the cello. And so I've seen this forever. This kind of always intrigued me because I love like strings and orchestra music. And they had one that was the day before my birthday, where there was a string quartet doing the music of the Lord of the Rings, which is like, I feel like the concert was
Perfect.
made with me in mind. It's at my
Mhm.
birthday. So I took my wife and my two kids, I dragged them along with me into Atlanta, and it was in like a super cool venue. It was this old
What venue?
cathedral,
Do you
not
remember?
cathedral, but like an old like chapel, but it's like a real old stone. Like it looked like something out of the medieval
Is it the
ages,
Tabernacle?
or chapel on
I'm
Sycamore or
gonna look
something.
it up.
But look it
Okay.
up. It's like the
That's
coolest venue
cool.
ever, and it's like a super intimate. Like I don't know. There wasn't a lot of like flash and like there's no screens and there's not. It's just chairs, a bunch
Cool.
of candles. We'll throw some videos or pictures up I took of the event so you guys can see. And it was awesome. It was a string quartet. There were four ladies, that two violins, a viola, and a cello. Um, Actually, each of the four were like a different ethnicity, which was really cool. Like, and they performed together, went through all three movies, and it was awesome. It's one of those things that you see advertised all the time. You're like, I don't know if this is real or a scam or what it
Mhm.
is,
And
but
it was
finally went.
real.
And it was real. It was awesome. My kids, even like on the way there, they were like, "Is there like a screen? Like, is there like, are they showing the movie like as they play?" And I was like, "No, like, it's just music." And they're like, "Oh, like that's boring." Like it's so rare to go somewhere, and they ended up enjoying it. And they love Lord of the Rings too, so they know all the music. But there wasn't like a lot of talking. It's just like the music. Like, you sit there, you're with people, they play the music. It was wonderful. And I don't know, I love live concert stuff. And usually that live concert stuff is heavy metal bands from Europe. But if you do see the Candlelight concert from Fever being advertised, check it out. It is worth going. I had fun and I felt special because it was sort of my birthday party. So that was that
That
was
sounds
fun
fun.
for me. But we hope you had fun. This was fun episode. A lot to get into with the Oscars. I know there's still several of these movies that I want to check out. Like I still want to see Hamnet and some of these, maybe finish Frankenstein at some point, as soon as
Not
I
on
get.
an
Uh,
iPad.
yeah, and yeah, some of these movies do get sort of a second wind with the Oscars and stuff. So I do want to go check out some of these, maybe catch up on some reviews that I missed. But we hope that you guys will check out our podcast next week, every Thursday, for more conversations on faith and pop culture.